Tom Sawyer, Chapter 5. Tom was the first one awake. He rubbed his eyes and wondered where he was. Then he remembered. He was a pirate living on an island. It was a cool gray dawn. Dewdrops hung on the grasses. Thin blue smoke rose from the dead fire. In the woods, Tom heard the humming of a woodpecker. Tom woke up the other boys. The three pirates immediately went for a swim in the river. They romped and ran in the shallow water. They came back to camp happy and refreshed. Soon the campfire was blazing again. Joe found a spring and brewed some tea from hickory leaves. Huck and Tom went fishing. They caught a bass, 2 perch, and a small catfish. After a marvelous fish fry breakfast, the boys lounged in the shade. "Let's explore," said Tom. Huck and Joe were eager to follow. The three pirates tramped into the woods. Maybe there was hidden booty on the island. The boys looked inside hollow logs. They combed the tangled underbrush, but they didn't find any treasure. After another swim, the pirates made lunch. They were still eating when they heard a loud noise up the river. "What is it?" whispered Joe. "Can't be thunder," said Huck. "Because thunder..." "Shh!" Tom interrupted. "Don't talk." The boys listened and waited. Boom! "Let's see what it is," said Tom. The boys ran to the side of the island that faced town. A steam-powered ferry boat was drifting about a mile below. White smoke burst from the ferry boat's side. "I know," said Tom. "Somebody's drowned." "That's it," said Huck. "They did that last summer when Bill Turner drowned. They shoot a cannon over the water to make the body come up." "By jings, I wish I was over there now," said Joe. "I want to know who drowned." The boys watched and listened. Suddenly a thought flashed through Tom's mind. "I know who drowned," he said. "It's us. They're looking for us." "You're right," agreed Huck. "We're heroes," said Joe. The boys were missed. Hearts were breaking. People were crying. They were the talk of the town. Being a pirate was wonderful. By evening, the ferry boat gave up the search. The boys ate supper around the campfire. They tried to guess what people were saying about them. Tom thought about Aunt Polly. Joe thought about his mother. "Maybe it's time to go home," Joe suggested immediately. Tom and Huck didn't want to go back, but Tom couldn't help thinking about poor Aunt Polly. He had to tell her that he was all right. After Huck and Joe were asleep, Tom scribbled a note to Aunt Polly on a piece of bark. He rode across the river and ran along alleys until he came to his aunt's house. A dim light was burning in the window. Tom saw Aunt Polly and Mrs. Harper in the sitting room. Tom quietly lifted the latch and crept inside. He crawled under his aunt's bed. From there he could see and hear everything going on in the sitting room. "What is making the candle flicker like that?" asked Aunt Polly. "Why, the door is open." She got up to close it. Strange things are happening," said Mrs. Harper. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She clutched a handkerchief in her hands. "I hope my Tom's better off in heaven," said Aunt Polly. "He wasn't a bad boy. He never meant any harm. He was the best-hearted boy that ever was." Aunt Polly started to cry. Tom felt awful. Aunt Polly was worried sick about him. "My Joe was the same way," agreed Mrs. Harper. "He was always up to mischief, but just as kind and unselfish as he could be. To think I punished him for taking the cream. I forgot I threw it out because it was sour. Now I'll never see my poor dear boy again in this world. Never, never." Mrs. Harper broke down sobbing. "I know just how you feel, Mrs. Harper," said Aunt Polly, patting her neighbor on the hand. "Just yesterday I was forcing painkiller down Tom's throat. The poor boy went wild with the awful stuff. God forgive me, oh, my poor dead boy!" This last memory was too much for the old lady. She broke down and wept. Under the bed, Tom sniffled a little too. Soon Mrs. Harper said good night. Aunt Polly knelt beside her bed to say her prayers. Her words were full of love for her nephew. After Aunt Polly fell asleep, Tom slipped out from under the bed. He decided not to leave the note for Aunt Polly. He had a better idea. He put the bark back into his pocket and gently kissed his aunt good night. Tom rowed back to the island at daybreak. His fellow pirates were looking for him. Over breakfast, Tom told them about his adventure home. But he kept his latest plan for himself.